for the week, we wanted to take a moment to highlight a topic that does not have much research nor is talked about as much in training or education sessions in the past years. Today, we're going to be discussing HIV and aging with our special guest today, Joseph Burke. So, hello, Joe. Do you want to give yourself a little introduction to us with a little background?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anthony, just for having me on today. But yeah, just a very quick background. My life is extremely complex and complicated. I was born with a rare bleeding disorder called hemophilia, and specifically hemophilia type A severe, which means I have less than 1% of clotting factor in my body. So basically, how does my HIV journey intertwine with the world of bleeding disorders? Well, in the early 80s, the products that were used to treat hemophiliacs, which is a recombinant factor VIII based, used to come from human blood donors, and that was kind of the big red flag right there. But with just the lack of just not being compliant in the 80s with receiving blood and then just making a product, the batch went out to over 10,000 hemophiliacs around the nation. And of course, I was one of those. At age 2, I became infected, or 2 or 3, I became infected with HIV and then hepatitis C as well. So my journey, I call it the 3 H's: hemophilia, HIV, Hep C. And so that has been my journey pretty much. And I'm 43 now, so I'm kind of an anomaly. Like, okay, I'm getting old now, and that's going to lead into today's discussion. How do we talk about somebody who's aging with HIV, specifically with other comorbidities and issues that's just compounding that? So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. And that's the thing, we don't know about it because that's something new. It started in the 80s, so
Yeah.
we're growing with the population with them, but the research isn't keeping up
Yeah.
as far. So today we're going to be asking Joe a few questions about HIV and aging to get a better understanding of someone with lived experience being able to share a piece of their wisdom with us.
Okay.
So Joe, for the first question, what would you consider about 3 top needs of a person maturing with HIV?
Maturing with HIV. Well, there's some interesting science that's coming out, and I think Dr. Janelle and the team that's at UF Health can probably collaborate this. Bone health and bone care is one of the ones that's kind of they're starting to see, because persons living with HIV, that is, I can't say maybe in the 35-year plus criteria, because I'm going on 41 years HIV positive. For some reason, the HIV is harvested in your bone marrow, and it lives in your marrow and in your immune system. And we're starting to see like some bone density loss with patients that are my age. So I have to go once a year to an endocrinologist there at UF Health, and they measure my bone density, and it just kind of seeing where it's, and we're seeing a trend in my bone health specifically where I am getting more fragile. It's not because it's not because I'm 43 years old. It's because I'm almost got like a 65, 70-year-old body in a 43-year-old because of the HIV, if that makes sense. So bone health is one. I would think too, when you're maturing with HIV, a lot of people don't think about this, but I think adequate insurance coverage for the long haul is a top priority, because whether you're looking for retirement, whether you're looking for benefits, whether you're unemployed, whether you're just in the daily grind going through the motions, I think having an insurance plan to cover for your HIV medications is very crucial. It's going to take a lot of that burden off of you. And I think that's one of the needs is, as we get older, we want to make sure that the medication is there, right? We don't want to go a day without missing, because let's be honest, every day, every dose, every pill, it's vitally important that we adhere to that regimen. And, honestly, when I was thinking about this question, the top 3 needs, I think just enjoy life. I think you could just hit the pause button on everything else, all the crazy science, all the doctor's visits, just hit pause on life. And then just after science, after labs, after your viral counts, just breathe. Just enjoy life. Get outside, enjoy a walk, enjoy your animals, enjoy your family, and just do something fun. I think we skip over that. And I think that's we'll talk about that later in the mental health part of this. But I think enjoying life to its full as best as we can is probably, for me, one of the most important ones.
Oh yeah, and people focus, physical, everything's important, physical health,
Oh, yeah.
stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Personal, mental health is it's gonna take you, miles if you succeed in that.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. With the next question, so could you name some barriers to medication adherence for persons aging with HIV and maybe some strategies to address that?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I
strategies.
was meditating on this question, and for me, I've had a lot of crazy barriers, and then I've not had any barriers. But I think busy lifestyles and demanding jobs make it easier to lose track of time. You know what I mean? Because there's workaholics out there that want to dive into the world. They want to produce, create, and do. And in that process, they lose track of time. They lose track of where they're at. I am preaching to the choir here because I'm guilty of all of this. But I mean, it's very easy. And when you lose track of time, then, you're beginning 4 hours late on your dose, 6 hours late on your dose. Now it's 12 hours and you're still not taking your medication. You know what I'm saying? I think another barrier would be just to simply being proactive in your own health plan, kind of going back to the insurance. But I think kind of setting up, making sure that there is no issues in your coverage for your medication. I think that is extremely important. And that can be a big barrier for some, especially people who are unemployed, et cetera, that are HIV positive, that are trying to get the medication, but they just can't. And I think figuring out a way to set that up, and there are plans, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think for me, if you're asking me specifically, I am a religious person in terms of how I take my medication. I have an alarm set on my phone every day for 12 noon. And I think ahead. So if I'm going to be somewhere away from the house that day, say I'm going to be at a theme park with the wife or whatever, I have a little pocket pill container that always has at least 5 of my HIV medications in it ahead of time. So if I'm traveling on a doctor's appointment to Gainesville, Florida, or I'm at SeaWorld or Disney, or I'm somewhere else at the beach, I have my medication. So I'm never without it. And I think that's important. Also, too, I was talking about setting up the other plans and things for benefits and for insurance. The AHF is an amazing resource, and that is the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. That is I'm not proactive on any kind of pharmaceutical company. I'm not a representative for anything other than myself. But what I can tell you about them is they are the ones that supply my medication, but they also have a huge resource for patients in time of need. Specifically, if you're between jobs or you're unemployed, they offer so many plans and options that way you don't miss a dose. So they have ways that they can coordinate with your doctor. Can we get them a 7-day supply? What about a 14-day supply? Because, their job is lined up, but they don't have coverage right now. Can we get them They have those kinds of plans at the AHF. And they also do, one thing I really love that they just started doing is they do monthly packaging. So they will take, say, for example, if you're on Biktarvy, which is a single pill, they will put it in a monthly pop pack. And all you got to do is you just take it out. Oh, today is April the 26th. Let me take today's dose. Pop. There it is. And then when you go back, you can remind yourself, oh, it's cracked. I took today's pill. Bada boom. So I think for me, that is some of the barriers is just being a compliant to your dosing and then having coverage of even receiving your medication. Those are some of the big ones that I've seen out there in the world.
Yeah, and that's important. That's great. I didn't know about that resource, so I'm sure they're
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah.
That's important too, because with especially with the economy, you go through jobs, get laid off, something, you don't know what to do, and like you said, taking your medications with you, you never know. You're gonna go to Orlando for the day, but what if you're stuck there for 3 days? Your car breaks down, or something happens.
Any life.
Yeah,
Life
life
happens,
happens.
Anthony.
Yep, life happens. Exactly.
Yeah.
So for the next question, what may be some comorbidities that may occur for people, persons aging with HIV at this age? I know you mentioned
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously, I got my HIV through contaminated blood products that stemmed from a birth diagnosis of hemophilia type A severe. But I think also, too, there is the proponent of HCV, hepatitis C, that I would say a good 50% of that population of the hemophiliacs like myself got as well. So it's either like this: we either got HIV or Hep C, or in my case, co-infection, both. And so, yeah, there's several issues that happen as you get older with HIV that you don't even think ahead. You don't even plan for it. And of this populace of hemophilia patients, other comorbidities, obviously, that we have is overcoming the co-infection side, but then taking care of your body in terms of your kidneys. We always forget, hey, what is filtering all these drugs? What is taking care of all this? When I take this medication, I take this regimen, are you drinking enough water to flush your kidneys? Because a lot of people, especially I've seen in the HIV community, non-hemophilia and hemophilia related, their kidneys are going very bad. I have several friends in the HIV community who are on dialysis because the toxicity of the medications in the early 90s were so bad, it just damaged their kidneys. And I can say that, and I'm speaking from experience, because I suffer from kidney stones. And so about every 5 or 6 years, I will just develop kidney stones out of nowhere, and it is a direct derivative of HIV medications. It's kind of crazy how that works, but your kidneys do filter in that. You got to take care of your kidneys. Also, high blood pressure and cholesterol. Again, going back to my endocrinologist who looks at my bone density, he also looks at my cholesterol and lipids and treats those as well. And now I do have a family history of cholesterol, but I never developed cholesterol until I started taking HIV medications, if that makes sense. So the two do go hand in hand. And lastly, I would say in terms of comorbidity, mental health. I mean, just dealing with the depression and anxiety, and I'm guilty of, I fall in that category as well. There are days I will wake up that I am just, it's like you are literally unplugging me from the world, and I have just got to, it takes a longer duration for me to process things that are happening around me. It's really weird. It's like everything slows down, and I'm just trying to get through the day, if that makes sense. And so, just dealing with the mental health side. And we'll talk about some things a little later on in the interview that kind of helps combat that.
So for the next question, what are some of the sexual health needs of persons maturing with HIV?
This one I had to really kind of just sit and meditate on for a little bit, and I didn't really write a response until this morning. I think for me, transparency is the first and foremost with your partner. That should be a top priority in everything that you do. Using protection obviously is a way to go, especially if you aren't on therapy to treat your HIV. There is new science now. If you're protected and undetected, you're fine. But in the vein of that, if you're not on therapy and you do have a partner, I think you got to be transparent. For me, growing up, I was always anyone that I dated, I was always open about it, first and foremost. One of the first conversations we had, okay, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. I'm hemophiliac, but I'm also HIV and Hep C positive. And I found that wasn't more of a crutch for me. It was more of a kind of a rock for me, because it empowered me to be like, hey, this is who I am. I didn't ask for this. The world this is how it is. And you either love me or you just choose not to be with me. And ultimately that ended up working in my favor, because my spouse is a registered nurse, which is cool, right? Because he's in the medical industry. So when I can't hit a vein as a hemophiliac, she's like, oh, I got you. So it's great. It's kind of the way of the universe coming back on itself. But I think honestly too, in men, specifically in men, now I can't speak for the female side, but in men, we do have issues like erectile dysfunction and ED. That is another thing that's associated with long-term HIV. Also too, this one is just going back to just common knowledge about sexual health needs, just being wanted. The longing of wanting to be cared for is at the forefront most of any of this. We want to feel compassion. We want to feel love. We want to feel connected with someone. And it goes back to my first response: always be transparent with them as well. But those are some of the ones that I've faced in my own journey.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point with that because that you want empathy out of that, not sympathy
You
out of your part.
do,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
I don't want people showering me with, oh,
Yeah.
poor Joe.
Hmm.
I don't want that. Don't give me
Yeah,
that.
because that's
Yeah,
it's not it doesn't define your life. Just like, just little details. It's a detail about you. Doesn't define who
it's a
Joe is.
detail about me. I love that. That's a good way
Yeah.
to put it.
Thank you. And then, so for the next question, could you identify and describe some technology literacy interventions for older persons with HIV?
You know, there is a wealth and a plethora of support groups online, especially on Facebook groups. So if you want to use technology and social media as a way to help, as a coping mechanism, I would hugely support that. There are several Facebook groups that help me cope and deal with just what I go through on a daily basis. And it's weird, like, even though I have hemophilia, which is treated, even though I have HIV, which is treated, even though I had Hep C, which I'm supposedly cured of, there is also chronic pain and things I got to go through on a daily basis. So connecting with support groups on those specific niches kind of helps you navigate the portals of life a little bit. And so I'm involved with hemophilia support groups, HIV support groups, but also too, if you're wanting to use technology for interventions for people, I would say explore your creative side and don't be intimidated by an iPad. Make some art, draw, write a blog. Heck, get on YouTube, hit record, and journal your life. Talk about what it is that you're going through. Are you dealing with insurance woes? Are you dealing with something as you're going through and navigating life as an older person? Is there something that maybe somebody else that's getting ready to go into that season could benefit from your experience? There is huge opportunities here to connect with a lot of people. And I think that's using technology, especially social media, as an advocate tool, essentially. But it's vitally important that we remain connected to someone at all times. And I think that for me, as I'm a live streamer, I'm a creative, I'm an artist. So I think allowing these things to kind of just embrace them. I think using technology. I think, is that what you were going for? Like technology
Yeah,
interventions?
yeah,
Was that the basis of the question?
yeah,
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 and I think even COVID taught us so much about being isolated. But also, too, even though we were isolated physically, we weren't isolated mentally. We had groups, we had Zoom calls, we had things that were going on, and it taught us a lot about the human experience and what we can do in the potential in a small space in our home and just a internet connection, a computer, a microphone, and a camera. So there you go.
yeah. Well said. Like you said, you have something to say, just do it. Like you say,
Do
just
it.
record it and do it
Yeah,
because say you get 0 views, first time you get 3 views, at least someone's gonna relate with you. Someone is gonna find you, and then from there, that creates connections. And
absolutely.
life is about that connections. So, could you, for the next question, can you explain how loneliness can be a considerable dynamic during the aging process? And you did just mention that about being
Yeah,
one.
uh, it's interesting, this question. I never really got into a phase in my life where I would consider seeing my parents pass before me, and it sounds extremely morbid of me saying that. But you got to put things in perspective here. Let's be real for a minute. Doctors and physicians back in the early days of my life predicted I wouldn't live past 16. So here I am, I'm 43. I'm an anomaly to the system, and there are moments of isolation and loneliness. And it can definitely impact that aging process. And it goes back to just finding community. If you live by yourself and you have nobody else, there's no family near you, there's no local support group that you can connect with, you can find a family online. Trust me, it's not too hard. You can do some Facebook group searchings, you can plug into that. You can get on social media streaming platforms like YouTube and Twitch. You can find community. And here's the interesting thing. We are all designed to be connected. We're social creatures by nature. we have to talk and discuss things. And when you don't have that outlet, it just kind of, you're missing an opportunity to establish a family unit that maybe you never knew you had. And so it's really interesting for me. I think one of the biggest things I use to combat loneliness, which I'm not lonely because I'm married and I have a pretty active, productive life, but when I do get in those moments when my wife has long shifts, she's working at the hospital, and I'm here for long hours of the day, I do connect with my online family, and I have several families that I am part of, and I mentioned those previously.
That's good because, like you said, me too. There's your family, biological, and then there's also the chosen family that you find
Absolutely. Yeah.
outside, in your community or online. I have chosen family that I found online, out at bars. You find people everywhere that
Same.
you
Yeah.
same things. Yeah. So for the next question, what are some strengths of becoming, well, not an elder because you're not an elder. So what are the strengths of becoming,
You can call me an
older,
OG, Anthony.
an OG? What are
Yeah.
the strengths of becoming an OG in this?
The first one, we are torchbearers. We were not expected to
Beautifully said.
live this long. We have been given an opportunity to share the story of our lives and help others just to find solace and cope with our diagnosis. And let's be real, none of us were expected to live this long. Each day is a blessing, and we have the power to encourage, educate, and endure. Now, when I do public speaking, I talk about the 3 E's. That is, encourage, educate, and endure. And we have to encourage each other as a community. Education is always key because we have to know about what it is that we're living with, and then we have to endure, and that's just basically carrying that torch for the next generation of people to come behind us. Now, there's an interesting story I want to share on this about becoming an elder. And there was a moment, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was talking with my wife, and I was looking in the mirror, and I was shaving. I was like, holy cow. I was like, look at all this gray. I'm going to have to go get some Just for Men. And I'm starting to see the gray poke out. And my wife said something extremely profound to me. She looked at me and she said, Joe, you weren't supposed to see those grays. And I'm like, oh, boy, that hit in all the feels right there in a moment. But she's absolutely right. Because I was given a diagnosis that I wouldn't live at a certain age and I wouldn't make it past this. And just knowing where you are in the grand scheme of things, and that you get to wake up in the morning and plant your feet on the ground and do something productive, that's pretty much a blessing in and of itself. But another thing about becoming an elder, it takes some practice to get your mindset into this, but I no longer worry about my own morbidity. I focus on the day here and now. What can I do to leave a lasting impact? What can I do to bring someone joy? And how can I share my story in a new and unique way that will help others? And I think that's the challenge key point for me, and that's why I do a lot of advocacy and I do a lot of campaigning on my own end, because education is key. And as an elder, if we're not being proactive in educating the generation coming up behind us, I believe the generation behind us, we're going to be able to see HIV cured in the next. The science is there. We're literally on the cusp of it. And I know and believe in my lifetime we'll see that. But until that happens, we have to educate, and we have to endure, and we have to encourage.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, Joe.
Thanks,
And
dude.
then to wrap it all up, so
Yeah.
could you identify some activities that support healthy aging? I know you mentioned some earlier, but what are some that you do, or if you know anybody
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no,
has-
I actually got a nice little list for you here. I think diet is key. You need to be conscious of what it is that you're putting in your body. Obviously, 5 days a week of McDonald's is not going to do it. You have to, you have to be intentional about eating certain things and resisting certain things. And I think diet is crucial, because if you want to live a long, healthy life, you have to, monitor what it is that you're consuming and what you're putting in. Another one would be traveling. I love to travel. I love to hop on a plane and go to a new place and explore local parks, trails, and hiking. I love to do all those fun things. Outdoors, just being part of nature. Those are some of the activities that help with that. Not necessarily, making you look youthful, but helping you just cope and just see the beauty and grandeur of life. And staying active. Do not be dormant in all that you do. Do not be a couch potato. How dare you? But I think another thing, developing routines to get you through your day, especially if you suffer from chronic pain, especially if you suffer from depression or anxiety, routines help us do things in a systematic way. There's good routines, then there's bad routines. Develop good routines to help you do things on a daily basis to get you from point A to point B. And you will figure those out as you go through your daily process. And explore the arts. I mentioned this earlier, but become a creative. If you don't have a creative bone in your body and you can't draw, you can't make it, you can't compose music or write music or whatever, you can probably maybe knit or crochet, or there's adult coloring books, there's adult paint by numbers that's out now. You can do all sorts of things that help focus your mind and kind of help you do those problem solving things. And that's going into my next one, is cognitive games. I'm a big gamer. I love to play video games. And your cognitive ability with aging with HIV you do lose some of that. We call it, quote unquote, brain fog in the industry. And so there are methods that you can do. I mean, Wordle, right? What is it? Was it Wordle? Wordle of the day? Love that. I play it every day. I mean, I'm like there, Johnny on the spot every day. But anything that challenges your mind and helps you solve a puzzle, that's good for you. That's good for your cognitive function. You want to keep that at a high momentum. And video games help me do that, like for Call of Duty and first-person shooter games. There's also relaxing games if you're in the Animal Planet, things like that. There's things that you can do to help you kind of just get through your day and just kind of help you just with the aging process, just kind of develop those routines and those habits. And lastly, I would say one that a lot of people don't talk about, but that it would be faith. Whatever your spiritual journey is, faith gives us something that a lot of the world can't give us, and that's hope. Not a lot of things in the world today offer us hope. But for me, my journey is not only woven with science and HIV meds, but through my faith and hope in knowing that I'll get through them as a better person. And I think that we all need a little hope, right? And so whatever that looks like for you in your world, maybe explore that, maybe go into that. And I know today that's kind of frowned upon, but honestly for me, aging with HIV, it's good to have hope in something. So that would be all of my list there for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Joe. No, the common theme there is all of that's going to help you enjoy life, because
Yes.
that's what the most important thing is. Because at the end of the day, you only know one thing for sure. We're all going to die at some point. You have to enjoy life to its fullest, because you can die today, tomorrow, 2 years from now, 5, 10 years, you never know. So it's just be a good person, enjoy life.
Do your
I mean,
best.
it's stressful, but just try to be at peace with your mind.
Educate, empower, endure, and encourage.
Exactly.
I mean, you just got to do it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this up?
No. If anybody wants to find me on the interwebs, am I allowed to say that? Or
Yeah, of course. Share
just go to www.I, like iPhone, I strive, the number 2, thrive.com. And that is where I talk about a lot of I blog about all kinds of things, from insurance woes to new medications and all the stuff that I go through on a daily basis. Check it out on that as well.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna check that out too. It was such a pleasure to meet you. We really appreciate the time for you taking this for our peers.
Likewise, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you. I know they're gonna enjoy this a lot, and I heard only great things from you from Dr. Janelle. So I know she's gonna be happy about it.
She's pretty awesome. I'm telling you. I
She
am a
is.
product
She's
of
great.
Dr. Janelle. So, hey, what's up, Doc?
She's great. She's a
Yeah,
great doctor.
she is.
All righty, Joe.